The convoy came through on a Tuesday, which was how I thought of it, even 14 months out from anywhere that ran a Tuesday. HFY 7 did not run Tuesdays officially. It ran on compact standard time, which cycled in 31-hour increments, and had no concept of a week. But I had been alone on the post for long enough that I had started imposing my own calendar on top of the official one, just to give the days some shape. Supply rotation was Sunday, board maintenance was Monday. The Vethrani convoy arrived on what I had decided was Tuesday, which felt appropriate. Tuesdays were always the day something turned up uninvited. I picked them up on passive scan about 6 hours out. 11 ships. A full survey convoy, which was unusual for the Keth corridor. The corridor was rated low traffic, low strategic value, outer margin transit. Most convoys used the Oreth trunk route 2 sectors over. This one was cutting through directly, which meant either a schedule problem or a commander who did not want to pay the Oreth waypoint fees. I logged the contact, flagged it as inbound, and went back to the relay board. The relay board was the whole point of HFY 7. The post existed to maintain signal continuity along the outer margin. A positioning and communications relay, one of a chain of 11, spacing out across 40 light minutes of dead corridor, where quantum sync navigation arrays had a documented tendency to drift. The chain had been designed by the Compact's infrastructure division about 60 years back, when the corridor was busier. Traffic had dropped since then, so had the maintenance budget. 7 of the 11 posts were dark. 3 more were running on automated systems that had last been physically inspected 4 years ago. HFY 7 was the only one with a person in it. I had been here 14 months because I had bid for the posting, which my supervisor at the time had described as the single most baffling career decision he had personally witnessed in 30 years of infrastructure management. The post came with a maintenance allowance, a small quarters module, and complete operational authority over my section of the relay chain. I liked the quiet. I liked the board. I liked that every morning I could look at the signal log and see clean continuity stretching back to the previous morning, and the morning before that, 14 months of mornings, unbroken. The Vethrani convoy filed a routine contact notice when they were 2 hours out. I received it, acknowledged it, and reviewed the attached convoy manifest. Lead vessel was the Vethrani's Reach, a survey cruiser. Commander on record was a senior survey director named Vethrani Dorn. The convoy designation was Class 7 Priority Transit, which entitled them to a courtesy status review of any joint compact infrastructure they passed within range of. The status review arrived about 40 minutes later, filed by a logistics officer I never got a name for. It was a standard form, and the relevant fields had been filled in efficiently. Post designation, HFY 7, outer margin relay, joint compact infrastructure, active. Operational status, ambient infrastructure, minimal operational footprint, no strategic designation. Personnel, 1. Single unit biological operator, human, civilian contract, non-essential, ornamental function. I read that last line twice. Then I filed the acknowledgement, noted that the post remained operational, and went back to the board. They passed within visual range about an hour after that. I did not go to the observation port to look. I had work to do. The board ran a self-check cycle every 4 hours, and the 4th hour check had flagged a minor calibration drift on relay antenna 3, which needed a manual correction before the next scheduled broadcast window. It was a 20-minute job. I did the job. Through the porthole, I could see the running lights of the convoy moving past in a long, slow line. 11 ships, all of them larger than HFY 7 by a significant margin. The Vethrani's Reach was the size of a small station. I could see the pale blue wash of its drive emissions against the dark. They looked very impressive. I finished the antenna calibration and logged it, and made a note to check the calibration housing on the monthly inspection in 3 weeks. Then I made tea. The convoy had been gone for about 2 hours when the signal came in. It came in on the general hailing frequency, which the post monitored as a background process. I almost missed it, because I was in the middle of the evening board check, and had the monitoring volume turned down, but the alert light came on, and I reached over and turned up the volume, and the voice that came through was a Vethrani communications officer, speaking very quickly in standard. HFY 7, this is Vethrani's Reach convoy lead, requesting signal status confirmation. Please respond. I picked up the transmitter. Keth Voral 7, receiving. Go ahead. A pause. Longer than transmission lag would explain. Keth Voral 7. We are experiencing a navigation array malfunction. Our quantum sync positioning is compromised. We are querying the corridor relay chain for active signal sources. You are the only response. I looked at the board. The board looked fine. Confirmed. Keth Voral 7 relay is active on all primary and secondary frequencies. What do you need? Another pause. We need a positioning lock. We need your relay signal as a fixed reference point. Our array lost sync approximately 90 minutes ago. We have been attempting internal recalibration. We have not been successful. 90 minutes. That meant they had lost sync almost immediately after clearing my range and had been running dark through the dead zone for an hour and a half before they called. I did not say that. I said, understood. I can give you a full positioning package, signal lock, corridor mapping, and a navigation reference beacon on dedicated frequency. Stand by. I set up the dedicated frequency. I packaged the positioning data. The board had clean records going back 14 months, which meant the corridor mapping I was sending them was more current and more detailed than anything in the Compact's official survey database for this section. 14 months of regular, logged, hand-verified relay broadcasts. I sent the package, received, the communications officer said. There was a quality to their voice that I could not quite characterize. Not relief exactly. Something adjacent to it. Navigation is confirming lock, stand by. I waited. I finished the evening board check while I waited, because it needed finishing. Navigation confirms lock, the officer said. About 12 minutes later. We are resynced. Thank you, Keth Voral 7. Glad to help, I said. Safe transit. I logged the exchange, filed the signal records, and noted the relay assist in the post's operational log under the standard category for corridor navigation support. Then I finished my tea. The reclassification notice came in 3 days later. It was a standard compact infrastructure form, which I recognized by the header format. The relevant field had been updated. Post designation, Keth Voral 7, outer margin relay, joint compact infrastructure, active. Operational status, essential corridor infrastructure, Category 1 navigation support designation, active strategic classification. Personnel, 1. Single unit biological operator, human, civilian contract. Essential, navigation support specialist, corridor qualified. They had removed the word ornamental. I filed the acknowledgement. I noted the reclassification in the post log. I put in a supply request for an additional case of the calibration compound I used on the antenna housings, because I was getting low, and the monthly inspection was coming up. Then I made tea, sat down at the board, and watched the signal log scroll forward, clean and continuous, the same as it had been every morning for 14 months, the same as it would be tomorrow. The convoy's navigation officer had asked, before they signed off, how long I had been maintaining the post. I told them 14 months. There was a long pause on the line. Alone, they said. Yes, I said. And you maintained continuous signal the entire time. That's the job, I said. It is, though. That is exactly the job. You sit down at the board. You run the checks. You fix the drift when it appears. You log everything. You make the tea. You keep the signal on. Nobody asks you to do it in any particular way. Nobody checks whether you are doing it carefully or sloppily, thoroughly or just well enough to pass an inspection. You are alone, 14 months out from anywhere that runs a Tuesday, and the board is your board, and the signal is your signal, and you keep it clean because that is what you do when something is yours. The convoy had filed me as ornamental. I thought about that, sometimes, in a mild and distant sort of way, the same way I thought about the calibration drift on Antenna 3, or the supply order I'd forgotten to put in for the first 3 months, and then caught up on all at once. Something to note, something to log. Nothing, particularly, to do anything about.